You remember the sound of a dial-up internet connection before you remember your first password. You know what it felt like to rewind a cassette with a pencil, and also what it felt like to open your first email account. Not someone who grew up fully offline, not someone who grew up fully digital, someone who stood in the doorway while the world changed rooms. If you were born between 1977 and 1985, you were not just part of a generation, you are part of a transition. A narrow, almost invisible bridge between two completely different realities. You learned patience before speed. Waiting wasn't frustrating back then, it was normal. TV shows came once a week. Photos took days to develop. Phone calls were tied to a place, not a person. But then, everything accelerated. Suddenly, things became instant. Messages, entertainment, information, and somewhere inside you, two systems kept running at the same time. This is where it gets interesting. Psychologists describe something like this as temporal dual conditioning, when a person is shaped by two conflicting time environments during their formative years. Your brain learned to tolerate delay, but your adult life demands immediacy. So now you feel both restless and patient, calm but slightly behind, capable but never fully synchronized. You were told to be independent early, figure it out, don't disturb adults, be practical. There was less supervision, less emotional language, more expectation. But at the same time, you were never really taught how to process what you felt. So you became functional before you became understood. And here's what most people miss. This wasn't neglect in the obvious sense. It was something quieter, a kind of emotional minimalism. In developmental psychology, researchers like Donald Winnicott described environments that were good enough for survival, but not always enough for emotional articulation. So you adapted. You became the one who manages, the one who adjusts, the one who doesn't need much. And over time, that identity became invisible, even to you. You understand both authority and rebellion. You grew up respecting structure. Teachers weren't questioned, rules weren't negotiated. But then you witnessed the rise of individual voice. The internet gave everyone a platform. Suddenly, authority became optional. So now you live in contradiction. You question but still hesitate. You speak but still filter. You think freely but feel restrained. Come back to this for a second, because this tension is not confusion, it's adaptation. Sociologists call this cultural lag, a concept introduced by William F. Ogburn, where human values take longer to adjust than technological change. You didn't fail to keep up. You simply carry two timelines inside one mind. You value privacy, but live in a world that rewards exposure. You were raised when personal life stayed personal, family matters stayed inside walls. Then suddenly, everything became visible, shared, documented, and you never fully crossed over. You watch more than you post. You think more than you say. You hesitate before sharing something personal. This is where it gets deeper, because your behavior isn't hesitation, it's calibration, a response shaped by growing up before surveillance became normal. In fact, research by Sherry Turkle suggests that people with pre-digital childhoods often maintain stronger boundaries between identity and expression. So what looks like distance is actually awareness. You remember boredom. Real boredom. Long afternoons with nothing structured, no algorithm deciding what you should feel next. And because of that, you developed an internal world. Imagination wasn't optional, it was necessary. But now, in a world of constant stimulation, you sometimes feel disconnected, not because you can't keep up, but because you know what it felt like before the noise. And here's the part most people never realize. Your discomfort isn't weakness, it's contrast memory. Neuroscience research, including work by Daniel Kahneman, shows that the brain evaluates the present based on past baselines, and your baseline is different. You don't just experience the present, you compare it constantly to a quieter past. You are often the one people rely on, not because you try to be, but because you learned early how to hold things together. You don't panic easily, you don't break loudly, you don't ask for much. And because of that, people assume you need less. But there's another side to this. You were never fully taught how to be held, so you became the one who holds. And maybe that's why you feel different. Not broken, not lost, just slightly out of place. Because you were not designed for one world, you were shaped by two. You remember what it meant to wait in a time that no longer waits. You understand silence in a world that never stops speaking. You carry depth in a culture that rewards speed. And maybe that quiet feeling you've carried for years, that sense that you don't fully belong to this pace, this noise, this constant urgency, is not something to fix, it's something to recognize. Because you are not behind. You are not misaligned. You are a record of transition. A living memory of how humans used to be and how they are becoming. And somewhere between those two versions is exactly where you exist. And if this video made you feel understood in a way you couldn't explain before, then you're not alone. There are more layers to who you are and more patterns waiting to be seen. This is Patterned Self, a place where we decode the hidden psychology behind how you think, feel, and exist. If this resonated with you, take a moment to explore the channel. You might just find another piece of yourself you didn't have words for until now.